The president had this to say about Vladimir Putin in a phone call with the BBC.
Are you done with him? I mean, I know that sounds a simplistic thing.
But I'm disappointed in him. But I'm not done with him, but I'm disappointed in him. So we had a deal done 4 times, and then you go home and you see he just attacked a nursing home or something in Kiev. I said, what the hell was that all about?
Do you trust him?
I trust almost nobody.
Well, some critics say Trump's 50-day timeline handed Putin a green light to finish his brutal summer offensive in Ukraine before facing any consequences. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev today dismissed the tariff threat as a, quote, theatrical ultimatum, saying Russia doesn't care.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. There has been a lot of talk about Donald Trump's so-called pivot on Russia. I wish I believed it, but here's the tell. Trump is giving Putin 50 days before the supposed tariffs kick in. That's basically the entire summer fighting season. What Putin is vying for is time to rain missiles and drones down on Ukrainian cities, time to terrorize the population into submission. So while I applaud the resumption of the supply of defensive weapons to Ukraine, which never should have been interrupted in the first place, I'm not buying this pivot against Putin, and neither, honestly, are those closest to the issue. Yesterday, I posted the first half of my interview with Bridget Brink, who served as America's ambassador to Ukraine in the early days of the war. Ambassador Brink helped mobilize the coalition that kept Ukraine in the fight, and she ended up resigning in protest after Trump's election and his betrayal of Ukraine. She has great insight into what is happening now and into Putin's larger ambitions, and she is also running for Congress in a swing district in Michigan. Here is part 2 of our conversation.
I think we have to understand that Putin's overall play is much, much larger than Ukraine. Even though he's a tactician, he really just looks for opportunities and takes them where he finds them. And I think in this situation, unfortunately, he has seen with the Trump administration that he can keep going and he can create facts on the ground while he lies to us about what he's doing. And while he continues to have conversations, what I would say, pretend to be in some kind of negotiation, while he's actually just pounding and going ahead to create facts on the ground, which help him achieve ultimately his goal, while not making us angry enough or not making us react. But I think we just have to have a real clear-eyed view as to what's going on and who he is and what needs to be done in response. And in that way, this is how not only Ukraine wins, but Europe wins and we win. This, to me, is the right answer.
I like your description of Putin as a tactician because that's at odds with many people's characterization of him as a strategist, as someone playing multi-dimensional chess. Because when I see his tactics in Ukraine, they just seem not only short-sighted, but unable to appreciate what he's actually up against. It's reminiscent of the strategic bombing of both sides, honestly, in World War II that was aimed at demoralization. It doesn't work. The Ukrainian people are as resilient as ever, as determined to win as ever. Can you help us understand the mindset of Ukraine and what Putin is getting wrong?
Well, that's exactly true. If Putin's goal was to subjugate and hold a country of 40 million people and bring it, so-called, as I think he would describe, back into the Russia sphere, he has done precisely the opposite. I can tell you, I do not think there is a person in Ukraine who has anything but deep hatred for him. And also, I think, much animosity toward the Russian people for supporting him. And I think it's unfortunate. It's terrible that this is the situation. But I can say, having lived under these missiles and drones, which I think you have as well, at night, when you're up half the night, you have to take your kids down to the bunker for safety. Ballistic missiles, Kinzhal missiles, some of these other Skiran, I think, these new technology, so-called new technology missiles from Russia are very dangerous. And you have basically minutes to try to save your family. Or if you talk to some of the families who have lost their children, and I've talked to these people who've had their children killed on playgrounds, or people being targeted in their churches or in their community centers, that is not something that people can forgive. And I don't think that in any way, shape, or form that the Ukrainian people will forgive Putin or the Russians for what has happened to their country. And so what this means is Putin has basically driven away any possibility, I think, commonality with the Ukrainian people. And the Ukrainians, to their great credit, have fought in a way that is not just brave, but incredibly innovative. And here's where we're also, I think, missing something that we should really reconsider. We've spent a big investment in Ukraine. I totally agree. It was over $100 billion when I was there that we were spending in various ways, either with weapons directly or with other types of assistance to help support their fight. The Europeans have spent more, but we have spent, that's a very serious amount of money and an investment by the United States and the people of the United States for the right reason, in my view. What we need to do is make sure that we take advantage of that investment. And part of that is keep our solidarity with the Ukrainians because it's a strong ally that can be and wants to move much closer toward the West, toward Europe and toward America. But also it's the battle lab of the future. What's going on in Ukraine with drone technology? And you mentioned, we have to think about what's happening in Taiwan and China. These are the fights that are happening in places that are also strategically important to the United States. I would guess there's also a domestic, for example, border application to a lot of this as well. The drone technology and the fight in which is being waged there is a completely new kind of fight. And it's important for us and our military to also learn from this. And I think that's a piece that hasn't been discussed enough, how much we can actually, we, the United States, learn and collaborate on a fight that we could use and even defend ourselves or defend our allies and partners all over the world.
Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break to say thank you to everyone who's been following and supporting this show and this channel. None of it happens without you. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my Substack page, I'd really appreciate the follow. It's a great way to make sure you never miss an episode. It's free to sign up. And if you're able to pitch in a few bucks, every dollar goes back into the show. Just search for The Ken Harbaugh Show on Substack or click the link below. Thanks. Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but I now maintain, having been to Ukraine, having been to the front, having embedded with kamikaze drone units, that if America doesn't learn quickly how the next war is going to be fought, we are going to lose it. That is also what is at stake in the fight in Ukraine, is understanding the completely transformed battle space. Ambassador Brink, give us a quick primer on Michigan's 7th, what's at stake, and tell us a little bit about the people you're hoping to represent.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Well, after resigning my job and speaking out publicly against our policies on Ukraine, I came back home and I've dedicated my life to the fight for freedom and democracy. And I saw how this is playing out overseas in a way that is against our interests, in my view. And the same thing I see is happening at home. And so I believe that the policies that are being put in place are actually hurting our country in terms of who has health insurance, whether or not we're giving people in need food assistance, whether we're creating jobs in places like mid-Michigan. The 7th Congressional District is one where we have very important manufacturing production, and to support that is important to job creation and having people have a better life. I think the problem I see at home and what worries me the most is that I spent my life in countries where democracies were young and not as strong as our democracy. And for the first time in almost 30 years, I'm seeing that some of the doubts and worries and problems that I saw in these young democracies are also appearing in our own democracy. A distrust of government, a belief that government can't deliver, a belief that someone else is benefiting, or that there's corruption at very high levels. This is happening in our country right now. I haven't ever seen this before, not at this level, not at a level that goes all the way up to the White House. And to me, this is deeply, deeply concerning. And as someone who had devoted my life to this effort of supporting freedom, supporting democracy, I felt like the only thing I could do is come back home and try to support that here at home. I believe in just common sense solutions and finding common ground, a strong America with a strong military, a strong business environment, but one that also protects its workers and its people and gives every single person opportunity. I believe that's what's made us. I come from I was a daughter of a single mother, but education, my public school education from Michigan, is what gave me the ticket to go to become the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and to advise 5 presidents and to spend my life in public service. And I couldn't be prouder to have done that. But we need to make sure that opportunity is there for every single kid in our country. And so that's why I've come back home and I'm to mid-Michigan, and I'm here to run to try to run against the current incumbent, a freshman incumbent, but actually to flip the seat. And what I hope will be to flip the House. The reason I think that's important, even though I've worked for both parties along my whole career and 5 different presidents from both parties, is that I think we need more discourse and debate, and we need to get through and cut through some of this partisan politics and actually find common ground that is going to help American people here at home. So it was, for me, a very hard decision to leave public service, but one that I felt was necessary. And I think the problem we have right now is that people aren't standing up to the Trump administration, not even those in Congress. I think we need to be stronger to make the arguments that are necessary so we end up in the right place for our country. We got to stand up and speak out, and we need people of principle who are willing to do that. So that's why I'm running, and thank you.
Where can people find out more about your campaign, Ambassador?
I'm at bridgetbrink.com, and please, I welcome people to take a look and join me, but thanks a lot for having me on.
Great having you. We'll check in again as the campaign progresses. Best of luck.